Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are in the world today, you're in the new way. I'm Doc Time, and we are all members of the Virtually Not Alone network, which means that there are people here who are like you who can do things in the new way. And the new way is where we take everything we knew and weigh it again. And our current motto is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm Dr. Lenny Time. I'm here to tell you that it's time to do your own work and nose to the grindstone it and get what you know you're here to do done so that when it comes time to group together, we all have our work that we can offer to each other in order to demonstrate the validity of a new way. We're at the point where most people are not thinking at all because they're non-player characters, people who are here from other timelines where they're necessary to keep the narrative going, but they're not really here because their consciousness left on another timeline on this earth. Time is a very tricky thing. It works normalized to human consciousness so that no matter what the scale of time is, we believe we have 80 years and we always run the same narrative within the paradigm. So we'll combine those words and call it a narradigm, and that means that the details are different. The outcomes are whatever comes out from the mix of people. But nature loves novelty and will make longer timelines for ideas to flesh themselves out if it is worth nature's time to do. Everything that nature does is very, very different from everything that people think nature does. And nature is a little bit more than just life on Earth. What it really has to do with is consciousness at all levels. And consciousness is fractal in level, and everything is normalized to human existence. So what we have are some things that have to take place, and some things that, if they don't take place, we wouldn't know they didn't take place, but on other timelines they did take place, and they're not really there. And so people who go on and on and on in their own mind about one thing and can't be persuaded to be different aren't really here materially. Cognitively, they're off. But there was a role for that person to play in the narrative that we're in, and so we let it play out. We are all role players trying to play roles that are different for us, but trying to get through a brick wall, essentially. There's a gate in the wall and there's a lock on the gate, and if you spin the lock and work the gate, everything explodes unless you have the exact right combination to the lock. But then tomorrow when you wake up, there'll be somebody trying that lock again, and sooner or later we're going to get the combination so that it doesn't explode and we get through that point. But the point is, we're always playing a LARP. And so if we theme our LARPs, we can get more mileage out of them. And since they're all contained in the sum of all things human, we can have fun while doing it. So the latest LARP I'm involved in is called Wonderland. And the only rule of Wonderland is it has nothing to do with anything that we consider real life in this system that we've attained. And so we're working in Wonderland to build a community through folks like Alice, the Red Queen, the Doorman, the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, Humpty Dumpty, and other characters that were specific to Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. So the rabbit is perpetually late, but you can see the rabbit up here in the corner of the picture, and the rabbit questions everything and wants to know who the fuck Alice is. But we have Alice coming back on Wednesday for Wonderland Wednesdays. And so we will assemble a cast of characters and let Alice tell us about the Red Queen and about what's going on in a different perspective than what I've been talking about as Doc, the expert on scientism. But I'm really the dormouse in the room, and I'll be keeping control of the party while the characters of Wonderland invent a new land of wonder. And if we play our cards right, it's going to be a test of group theory third order. Group theory first order is getting to meet people, and that includes, thank you, Don, that's very cool. I lost my train of thought. Alice in Wonderland is a wonderful book to do a LARP on, but the thing is, we need to do LARPs on many books. Atlas Shrugged would make a very good LARP. The Foundation series, the Dune series, both excellently open to LARPs, and these LARPs are building a system that is material different than the current operating system on planet Earth for humanity in this conscious paradigm. Words mean exactly what the Red Queen says they mean. And so anytime you use a word, if the Red Queen has a different word to fit in the way of what you're saying, we're going to say what we're going to say no matter what we say. The basis set for what we know differs between each of us, but the material essence of what's in that basis set is the same world that we're all on. So we can call the world vortex WHIRLED and not pay attention to the world vortex WORLD, because there's not much going on in the system that is falling down. But as I said before, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Wonderland is an imaginary world, and we're going to imagine that the rules are whatever we choose to make them, and work through everything that we need to provide for good, healthy, fun lifestyles for all the members of Wonderland. And in this world, we are a member of the Virtually Not Alone network. So if you want to participate in Wonderland, it will mean taking a role, saying your piece, and enjoying it until we get to the next LARP, which will be different books, same sort of cast of characters. But as the casts of characters get functional in the size of group, which is a second order group, because the first order group is fringe encounters and meeting people and just interacting. And the second order group is when people who know each other start acting towards a specific purpose. But a third order group is going to be a breakdown of second order groups to group people who have like interests and expand the horizon for what they're working on. So that as groups get born, the size of the group doesn't matter. The purpose of the group matters in a sense of level, how close they are to their mission, and order, which is an 8-step field based on a grid of 64, which is well beyond the scope of the current discussion, but not really. And we might get to that later on. What we're doing, what Doc is doing, is developing sociochemistry based on group theory, and it's all a matter of scale. But the size of the group matters in setting the initial order of the group. But as groups morph, it's more going to be a morphic resonance thing where people attract other people and the topics of interest attract even more people. And we learn to communicate together in a calm and peaceful way and just develop a system for community at all levels of life. I think each of us has a responsibility to be a community of one and take care of ourselves through the whole thing. I thought the number 4 might be missing in Fibonacci because it is non-visible, like space, or it represents time that doesn't exist like we think. I think 4 is just an extension of 3. And in group dynamics, when you add a 4th person to a group of 3, the material balance of things doesn't necessarily change much. It goes from a triangle to a square, but there's really not any major shift. Whereas the 5th person in the room just brings a whole lot of difference in the dynamics of balance and the ability to communicate. So I really believe that after we get up to functional groups of 13 to 21 people focused on a topic, the next step is to go down to 5 people and get 5 people who know each other and have worked together on topic, getting into a conversation that broadens the horizons and maybe setting forth with some glossaries and flowcharts so that more people can come into the groups and get functional and different aspects of things that we need to rework through. For instance, transportation right now is a nightmare no matter how you get on it. And one of our friends has been traveling, and he's in Mississippi. He has to go to Washington, D.C. to get to Colorado and Utah. Now, only the United States can have a government-operated train system that can only go east-west and can't figure out north-south. But the way they want flyover country to be is flyover, and so they're not going to tell us what reality really makes of these situations. It's good for me to be on a monologue again. It has been a very long time since I just went through how it is. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell folks that one of the entraining items that we have are clocks and calendars that make us adhere to a rigid structure of time. And time is not a rigid structure. And I believe that material values like mass, form, flow, power, love, sound, mind, and void are all concepts that if we use to develop internal rhythms in a coordinated effort, that we can all get it to the point where we're individually more functional when we're in our power and love, and not many people are going to bother us when we're taking our time voiding out and massing up for the next plan. And so it definitely requires that I stop reading the comments and keep talking because I lose my train of thought too easily. In essence, today in Doc's world is power sounding. And so by power, I'm in full force in developing the new way and a mechanism for creating our own media. By sounding, I'm coming out and speaking the words of what I've put together. And today I was working with the Fibonacci sequence and some breakdowns of how things work. And if you take a Fibonacci number like 21, it breaks down into 13 and 8. And so that's pretty easy, but 13 breaks down to 8 and 5, and 8 breaks down to 5 and 3. So that's the next level of how things work. And I think a group of 3 is a lot more functional than a group of 2. But those groups of 2 are necessary so that there are 3 groups of 2 within the group of 3, and each of the individuals in the group have a one-on-one talking relationship to the other individuals in the group. And so we're going to be in second order groupings, breaking down to third order groups based on these Fibonacci tables that I've developed. No, I really haven't developed them. I've just worked out the math of how they work, and fairly poorly also because I didn't have enough space. But the sum of the breakdown numbers decreases to the point where no matter where you start, there's going to be one left standing in the room at the end. And that's my role. I'm the person who's left standing in the room at the end. And right now I've got a second level group that is breaking into first level groups. And I'm going to make some projections of what I can see based on people that I've met, so that the next level of grouping allows me to build a fourth order. Right now, I've got the fourth order envisioned as to what it has to be, but I haven't gotten how the group dynamics are going to work to make it better than the third order, but it's going to have to be a step pretty high above second order, and it might need to have some more space in it to get rid of the information values that stretch across adjacent orders. There's a whole lot to unpack there, and at some point I will get into individually unpacking some of these statements with some people who are students learning how to run the operating system. But at this point, what I need help doing is working on measures of qualitative value. I can count how many people are in the room, but sometimes people come up with key points in the room that make the discussion more valuable. And I want to look and see how those points arrive for the discussion so that we can job the system and make more viable discussions. Howdy, Estuary at Zamzam. Welcome to another episode of Virtually Not Alone, where we are discussing group theory as a matter of scale in the new way, where we take everything we knew and weigh it again. And remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is Conversations with Time, but to tell you the truth, it's a monologue, and Time is conversing with himself. And time doesn't operate the way we think it operates. But we've got this problem in physics called circular logic. And circular logic says that frequency is wavelengths per second. And so when they have colors in a separated by a prism, there's different wavelengths for each of those covers. And since the speed of light is a constant, you can smush it all into one table and get the light spectrum. But that is not really true. And time is denominated in frequency because it has to do with the number of vibrations of a radioactive cobalt element that's stored at the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, which now has a different name because the government is too woke and can't make common sense names for things. But they do use acronyms very well. And I really want you to think about NASA as meaning never a straight answer. We have a world of very, very strange morphology right now, but I really believe that morphic resonance is the way that we catch on improving our knowledge base. And so I'm working in a group called CHISI, Collective Human Superintelligence. And the group is self-selecting. And the people in the group are nominally working to stop the heat increase from global warming. But in my world, I'm working to look at the group dynamics and see how they work in a dysfunctional, functional group because the parameters of the group think are set by the narrative and the paradigm that we're stuck in, but not really stuck in. And so, as I explained earlier in the episode, I think our timeline has only maybe a 10% human consciousness, and that 90% of the people that are here are non player characters and are not really in the game. They were in the game, but they have a role to play in the narrative, so they can't be kicked out of the paradigm until after they've played their role. But those of us who have experienced death within our person and then come back into the same person have a role to be here in consciousness that requires us to fulfill the role before we can move on into another portion of history that may be future or past, because time is relative to scale and not coordinated with frequency. And so until we don't measure frequency in denominated in time and time denominated in frequency, we'll have a circular logic that doesn't allow us to know what frequency is nor what real time is. But clocks and calendars have their place. You wouldn't be able to schedule a meeting with anybody without a clock or a calendar. On the other hand, that time is not real, and how much time it takes to do something is exactly the amount of time that it takes for you to do what you need to do. So if you have 2 hours to complete a project that you're going to take 3 hours to complete, get started and do the work. And what you'll find is the 3 hours have condensed to the 2 hours, and the product of your work is right on time when you need it. It's sort of like a concept that Bugs Bunny once had of the portable hole, where he reached into his lapel, pulled out a hole, unfolded it, put it on the wall, climbed in, reached out and took it in. And Fudd went by with his shotgun hunting wabbits. And then you saw the hole open up, Bugs climb out, take the hole, fold it back up, and put it back in his lapel. That's how time works. Dr. Seuss in Oh, the Places You Can Go talked about the waiting place. And all you have to do to make time stop is get to that waiting place. And if you're waiting for something, it's going to take forever to come. And you can use that time in the midst of forever to really, really get your work done. And we're always working, but where work is something that's not what they tell us it is, it's not getting paid for spending hours on something we don't care about. My work is to build a communication system that can be underlying the phenomena of life itself, so that if we can get communications and different thoughts about how consciousness is and what we can do about things, I trust that the consciousness that is planet Earth will do very well here with the assistance of the human consciousness. But right now, the operating system is that the Earth isn't alive, and so we can just drill holes into it and mine its blood and pump the oil and make the surface hot and all sorts of strange things that we really have to look at and see what the truth is behind the truth, because nothing we were taught as youngsters is true until we validate it, and we accepted it without validation when we were youth, because that's what we were taught to do. Don't question your teacher. And when little Lenny would raise his hand and question the teacher and everything, he got special reading classes so that he wasn't in the classroom distracting the teacher from propagating propaganda to all the other students in the class. And that was in the early 60s, when the AI that was recently developed was really developed in the hands of the military, and they decided to see if they could create a false history based on what people believed by being told by their television and news readers like Walter Conkright, Conkhead, whatever he was. Most people of my parents' era believed every word he said, and all I have to say is Bay of Pigs and Bay of Tonkin. Enough said. Everyone, thank you for listening. It has been a pleasant monologue. Dr. Lenny is on a roll, and we are going to be at peace. The next version of Wednesday Wonderland is Wednesday, and the only person besides yours truly, the Dormouse, who will be there will be Alice. But we might have other people representing different characters just to foster the discussion. Alice has had dreams and channeled poetry that seems to make the world a more sensible place. So everybody have a great day. Live long and prosper. Peace out. And we'll catch up to you with another live stream here in the near future. Be well. Be well.